Hello, welcome to Go Beyond Betty. Today we're going to make French onion soup. So this is actually part 3 in a series. If you're interested in watching, you can click up here. First thing we did is we made pot roast. We made like 2 huge pot roasts and we cooked it all down with this delicious liquid, and that is what we're using as the base today. So you can watch that one. The first thing I need to do, you can use any kind of onion that you want. I'm going with the most affordable ones. These are just plain yellow onions. They're lovely though, from Costco, hard as a rock. I'm just gonna cut off the top and the bottom, give them an easy little peel, cut them in half, because I'm gonna send down my food processor. So when you're putting them through food processor, you need to be mindful of the direction that you're gonna go. So because I want like a half moon shape, I'm gonna make sure that they're going down this way so that you have the lines going this way, and it's gonna cut and you're gonna have a half a moon. So give me a few minutes to get all these peeled, and I'm gonna shove them down the food processor. Meanwhile, I'm gonna take a whole stick of butter. So I'm gonna use 1 stick of butter to about 6 pounds of onions. This is gonna make a big batch. You know I do everything in big batches. Don't do it in a little batch, there's no point. Make a lot of soup, freeze it, give it away. Same amount of work. So, you ready?
Yes.
So we have all of our onions sliced. I'm gonna throw this in with the butter. The butter is melted. I'm gonna cover it. I'm gonna leave it covered on a medium heat for about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, I'm gonna take the lid off, so then it starts to evaporate and starts to caramelize. So we'll add, I'm gonna guess around 2 teaspoons of salt. Again, we'll adjust at the end, but throw in a good amount of salt just to kind of get this super sweaty. So after about 10 minutes of being covered and with the salt and the butter, they've gotten very sweaty. So I'm definitely making sure I mix it around, make sure the butter and the salt is distributed. Now I'm leaving the lid off. Leave it off, turn it down to maybe a 2, and stir it ever so often, but cook them for about an hour. You're gonna want this super dark caramelizing color. The bottom started to get kind of dark, so I did turn it all the way to low. But onions contain a lot of sugar. So I want to add in, I like a little bit of thyme. If I had fresh thyme, I would use that. I have maybe a half a teaspoon, and I've got 2 tablespoons of flour. So we want just the slightest bit of thickness. So I'm gonna stir that into the onions for just a second, just so that it gets dispersed, because eventually it will just thicken the soup just a little bit, because just brothy soup doesn't really hold you. So once that's mixed in, it's boiling hot, so it'll cook right away. We're gonna add a couple tablespoons of sherry vinegar. If you have regular sherry, use that. But you know I love vinegar. And then I have 2 cups of white wine. You could open a bottle of wine, knock back a little yourself, and be none the wiser. Or I always have a box of the Chardonnay from Costco in the fridge for just such an occasion. Give this a good stir. This is going to help release all the little num-nums at the bottom. Let that reduce just a little bit. If you're pinched for time, then be heating up your broth on another like giant pan. I'm not pinched for time, so I'm just going to put in the cold stock in just a few minutes. I'm going to turn this back up to medium, get this back to a boil so that it starts reducing that wine and the sherry. We'll give it a little bit, and then we're going to add our stock in. See you in 20 minutes. Tom was just commenting, that's not an attractive vessel.
No, it's not.
Well, it's because there was carrot in, and the carrot that I had in there was yellow and white. So there are still some thicker pieces in there, and for French onion soup, I want it as thin as possible. So I have a little, I don't think it's called a chinois, but it's as close as I have to a chinois. And so I'm gonna pour it through just so that we can strain out any extra pieces. That could maybe go in round 4 of the soup into, ooh, sheesh, splattery. This is why I ruin everything I own. Son of a bee. Fill it to the top. It needs a little stir. Keep these stirring. Oh yeah, because I put a lot of onion and carrot in here. A whole lot. I'm gonna throw half of this in. I ruined everything. Half of this in, and the other half not. All right, so come on over here, honey bunny. All right, so just straining a little bit more. All of this weird thickened mixture, it's just carrots and onions. We're using that tomorrow in our soup. So we're not going to cut extra carrots and onions. We're gonna use all this stuff. But it's just pulp. I am gonna use this much of it. So I do want a good amount of clear ish stuff, but I'm gonna put this in here, so come on over here, love. You gotta keep it moving because all those sugars are burning. Sorry. All right. Now we'll get our clear stuff. If you were serving this today, keep this going, get it going to a boil, and then we need to taste for salt, pepper, and acid. Since I'm not using this until tomorrow, I'm gonna taste it now, but it's not that crazy hot, so it's not gonna take 2 hours to cool. So I'm gonna actually turn my heat off. I'm gonna reheat it tomorrow. So I don't need to taste of the onions. I know they're super cooked down, but I need to taste the broth part before I store it. Delightful. Needs a lot more salt and pepper. And actually maybe more of that sherry. I like that. You can taste it, but we need more acid. And so since I'm using sherry vinegar, that is the acid, but we need a lot of salt. I ended up adding some water because it was so strong and I need it to go a little bit further. It comes out slow. Now, if you feel that this is overpowering, that was probably not even a tablespoon. It comes out really slow. If you feel that's too overpowering with the sherry flavor, then do my favorite go-to white wine vinegar. It's the lightest acid, but still brightens the soup. And you wouldn't think something like this needs brightness. Everything needs brightness. Sometimes it takes us 10 tries. And it's so much better to not go overboard because you can't take it back. Right? So do we do little by little by little, test, 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 until we're like, that's it. Let me get the white wine vinegar. It's going in. Give it a good stir. I think that's it. Time for Tom to test it. So we have to keep doing this until it is, because we don't want mediocre soup, we want amazing soup. So if you're done with the soup and it's still piping hot, you can go right to this step. I put mine in the fridge, I reheated it today, and now we've got to go on to the decoration part. So if you have some kind of crock or something that is oven safe, that's best. I'm gonna put mine right in a toaster oven. They fit in there. So take your warm soup, divide it out into your bowls. Okay, bowls are filled. I personally don't like the bread in mine. I'd rather have bread and cheese on the side. So mine's gonna stay that way. For Tom's, I already toasted this bread. I use a delicious, my own sourdough. You can check out the recipe here if you wanna make sourdough bread. I find it easier to go with like giant croutons because otherwise you're trying to cut bread inside soup. It just doesn't work out so well. So some giant croutons, throw them in. They will float or spill on the counter. Ooh, yeah. And then top with cheese. I rarely ever buy Gruyere. I find it to be kind of hard to work with. One, it's expensive. Two, it's hard as a rock. I feel like you get more rind than anything. A little bit more in that one. All right, so I just use a Swiss. Like Jarlsberg Swiss is great. Shredded is easier. You could do a thin slice, but you want it to melt quickly. So then right into the toaster oven. In 5 minutes, we're gonna have a meal. All right, so easy as that. Straight out of the toaster oven. I would try, but it's boiling hot right now, so I'm gonna wait till it cools a little bit. This is an amazing lunch. Imagine showing up on your neighbor's doorstep with this. It'd kiss you on the lips. I can't imagine anything else. It's a wonderful, super lady lunch, but Tom's gonna enjoy it as well. So thank you for joining me at Go Beyond Betty, where you are taking risks in the kitchen. This is meal number 3 on our pot roast. So basically only cost us the onions. Pretty good, right? We'll see you next time.